Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Wallsend history story. This week is not really a history story, but as I have done something similar in the past with old postcards, this video is all old photos, and I will be telling you or talking a little bit about each one. I hope that it will bring back some memories for you all and that you will enjoy looking at the old photos as well. And this one is video number 1 in what I'm going to call the Old Photos series. And I just want to sort of add here that if you have been enjoying the driving videos recently, I do have at least one more of those to share, but I wasn't able to record one last weekend due to the rain, as that would have ended up just being a video of watching the car windscreen wipers, which wouldn't have been very good. But after I've done that one, I will be doing some walking ones, but they will need to wait until the warmer weather, because I really don't fancy walking about in the freezing cold. So anyway, the first photo that you can see is looking up Station Road. Now this was taken from the tower of St Luke's Church. There isn't a date with this photo, but I am guessing that it is sometime in the 1980s. And some of the things that you can see are the co-op in the distance on the left hand side of the photo, and just in front of that you can see the old Forum clock tower. Now I will be talking about both of those a bit more in another video, as I do have much better views of them and also some photos from when the co-op was being built. The old Boots building on the right hand side at the bottom of the photo is showing the sign Quality Seconds. Now I can just about remember that shop. Now I would assume that this and the other 3 similar photos, which are coming shortly, were taken on a Sunday, as Station Road is quiet and most of the shops do look as if they're closed. Now it's quite an unusual view and not something you get to see every day. The next photo is another view from St Luke's Tower, and this time looking towards the Tyne, and you can see some of the cranes at Swans in the distance. You can also see Wallsend railway station as was, but of course at this time it's the metro station, as there is a metro on the track, so it's most definitely taken in the 80s. On the right hand side of the photo, near the centre, you can see the old Carville pub. Now it actually looks massive in this photo, and it never seemed to be quite as big when you were looking at it from ground level. Of course that is no longer there now, as sadly it burnt down many years ago and was demolished. Just above the Carville pub you can see some of the buildings that appear to have blue roofs. Now those buildings are Rawdon Court. The buildings themselves may not have lasted long, but whenever you see them on a photo like this one, sort of aerial view kind of shot, they certainly stand out with those big bright roofs on them. Now I can remember Rawdon Court quite well. I used to visit there quite often, as my friend lived on the ground floor, and it always felt very dark when you went inside, and a bit strange on the ground floor as well, because it felt as if you were going into a car park that had houses built into it. So how many of you listening to this have memories of Rawdon Court, or you maybe even lived there? Do please share your memories in the comments below, as I would really love to hear them. And this next view from St Luke's Tower is looking towards the town hall, although I am aware that it isn't too easy to see because it is quite far off in the distance, but you can just about see the tall dome. You can also see, if you look really closely, the doors for the fire station as well in the distance. And the view is looking along Laurel Street, and on the left hand side of the photo you can see the Undertakers. Now that area has changed a little bit, as the building that you can see in this photo next to the actual Undertakers building has a little extension added onto it now. You can't quite see the old ladies' toilets, which were a little further along past the Undertakers, as they're a little bit too small to spot, but maybe you can see them, I don't know. How many of you can remember those old ladies' toilets? They were converted a few years ago, and I believe they are now houses or flats of some description. Now I often wondered what they looked like inside, since they were changed into homes, and I assumed that they must have been quite small inside. The last photo in the collection taken from St Luke's Tower is looking towards Walker. In this one, you can see the Memorial Hall on the right hand side, and also staying on that side and moving a little further along, you can see the old Carville Road Co-op. Although it's no longer a co-op at the time this photo was taken, the building was still in use at the time. Just past the co-op, you can see the spire of St Andrew's Church. And on the left hand side of the photo, you can see St Columba's Church in the distance. Now I actually think it looks quite strange from this bird's eye view. It looks rather square. It is also quite odd at being able to see the roof of St Luke's Church, which is what is directly in front of the photographer. I do hope that you have found these first 4 photos interesting. Maybe you've spotted something that I haven't mentioned in them as well. And they were given to me by the late Ian Ferguson, and I am sure that he would have been really pleased to know that people are still looking at them and enjoying them today. Moving on now to something completely different. I remember many years ago being told about elephants being paraded through the streets of Wallsend, and I must admit that I always thought that people were just having a bit of a laugh with us. But then I saw these photos and realised it was actually true. This first photo shows the elephants where they have just come round from Park Road onto Hawthorne Grove, and at this point they have just passed Laburnum Avenue. It's most likely that the elephants would have come up from the circus down the burn, and the photo and the 2 to follow all date from the early 1960s. This next photo is a bit more of a close-up of 2 of the elephants in the parade, and I've always loved this photo as the car parked on the road just where the first elephant is passing has someone inside it who looks like a child. And their face as the elephants are passing has always made me smile. They do look a little bit shocked, amazed, and possibly a little bit scared as well. And I must admit I would have been a bit scared with those big elephants passing so close to me. And this last photo from the elephant parade shows them heading past Woodbine Avenue towards Station Road. Now I've been reliably informed that they would have continued on to the Wallsend Sports Centre, where there would have been an event on which also included several jazz bands. Now I have to admit that looking at this last photo and also the first one, it's amazing how close everyone is to the animals, and the elephants themselves don't seem to be fazed by all the people at all. Now it's most definitely not something you would see today, but back then it was seen as being something perfectly normal. So how many of you watching this can maybe remember seeing the elephants walking along the streets in Wallsend? I would really love to hear your memories about that in the comments below. Again now, moving on to something a bit different, the last selection of photos in this video are all jazz bands. Now this first photo shows a fairly good view looking along Hawthorne Grove towards Park Road, and the jazz band in the photo appears to be something called Ashington Telstar. This photo was taken at a similar time as the elephant ones, so probably again the early 1960s. Not such a big crowd as before because they probably haven't realised that the elephants are coming just yet. This next photo shows the Rising Sun Legionnaires Jazz Band. The banner suggests on that the band was established in 1964, and I do believe that that is correct, but if anyone knows differently, then do please let me know. And again, they are walking along Hawthorne Grove. Now I can remember when I lived in Laburnum Avenue, a lot of jazz bands used to pass along Hawthorne Grove on a weekend, and I always used to love to go out and watch them. And I know that they did bring out crowds of people to see them, but I also know that lots of people didn't enjoy the noise, and you could certainly hear them from a fair distance away. So how many of you listening to this were in the Rising Sun Jazz Band or any of the other jazz bands? Do please let me know in the comments below. And that brings me nicely on to these last 2 photos, and they show the jazz band I was in. Sorry, not the next two, because there is a third one after that. But anyway, never mind. Can't always not make mistakes. I'm pretty good at making mistakes. Anyway, and this jazz band was the Wallsend and Battle Hill Melody Makers. And this first photo shows us. I am somewhere near the back. I can actually spot myself as I was taller than most people at the time, all lined up at the green, ready to start marching. It's funny, but I have absolutely no memory of this day whatsoever. It was clearly a very wet day, but marching in all weathers was part of the fun of being in a jazz band. And this next photo, which is not massively clear, I do admit, shows us marching round from that previous photo position and passing the clinic on the green. Jazz bands were great fun. I remember the hours of work making sure that my uniform was clean and that my sand shoes had been whitened, and I used to stick them on the window ledge in the backyard to dry in the summer, which was not always a good idea, as often you would head back outside and find a fly or two, just little ones obviously, had landed on them and dried in place, so you had to start all over again. This last photo this week shows another jazz band, and this one is one of the jazz bands marching up Boyd Road towards the green. Again, it does show just how popular jazz bands were. Look at the crowds of people standing on the footpath watching them go by. And if you look in the distance at the houses on North View, all of them still have the old sash windows. There's not a double glazed window in sight. Double glazing was actually introduced in the UK in the 1970s, and apparently all new houses built from 1980 were built with double glazed windows, but it would be a while longer before people began to replace the old sash windows with the new style. And when I moved out of Laburnum Avenue in the early 90s, we still had the old-fashioned sash windows. Well, I do hope that you have enjoyed this little video. As said earlier, it really is just a look at some old photos of Wallsend and me telling you a little about what's going on in them. It is a bit like the driving videos, only the scenery is a bit more still than when we are driving past in the car. I do hope it has brought back some good memories for you of different places in Wallsend, and that you have also enjoyed looking at the old photos. Now, I have loads more to cover in the next few weeks, including things like the Forum, Station Road, the Park and the Burn. So I hope that you are like me and that you never tire of seeing the old photos of Wallsend. Anyway, I do thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again very soon.